Hi Charlotte, nice talking to you again. How did you and your family feel after Cam was able to sign a new contract with the Steelers?
I mean, to even make it to the NFL is a dream come true. And then to play for the Steelers, wow. And then to play for so long for a team and be a captain, and now 10 years in a row, like this dream just keeps going on and on. But he's worked hard for it, he's never taken it for granted. And even with this contract, right? He can't take it for granted because he's going to have to still perform and perform at a high level at his age. But his heart is in it. His body feels good and he's ready to lead, the team in any way he can. So it was very special for us as a family.
With all that chatter in the offseason about his contract, do you think he feels like he has to prove something and has to prove he's still motivated?
You know, Cam is so self motivated. Um, I think he's always been looked at as like, when he was younger, he was so big, so young. People thought, oh, he's a pushover. Um, when he got to college and performed extremely well in college, he still went to the combine. And in the meetings, the coaches who interviewed him felt like, I'd love him to marry my daughter, but I don't know if he has the nasty to play in the NFL. And he's always had to prove himself. And I feel like he's still underrated, that he doesn't get the love that others get in the NFL. But he doesn't need any more motivation because he's always going to give 100%. Always, maybe 150%. He's played hurt. I mean, there are so many times I see people complain about him on social media and they don't know what's going on. And times I've wanted him not to play, not to sacrifice his body, but he always will do it for his team. So I don't think he needed extra motivation, but he's ready to give it his all. I mean, he's been working out all off season. Um, Last season was really hard because he played hurt, but still wanted to go out there and help his defense and his team.
And what is his main goal for the upcoming season?
Well, um, Cam hates to lose at anything, like anything. Our family's very competitive, and when you're playing at this level, you're always striving for that Lombardi trophy, to bring that home to the city that you're representing. And I mean, his preparation for a game, it starts before the season. I mean, he's watching film, he's, meeting with teammates. I mean, his off season, he's working most of the time. And people don't see that. But he wants a Super Bowl trophy, not for himself, but for the city and for this organization. And I think that's what he's striving for. I mean, he wants it and he wants it bad.
When did you realize you could have two sons playing NFL football, and how different was their path to become a pro?
Honestly, um, they have different paths, right? So Cameron was huge. In eighth grade, he was 6'5". Um, and then he stopped growing. I mean, but he was huge. He was shaving. And but yet his body hadn't really come into its own because he was so big. And then in 10th grade, I think I didn't let him play football his ninth grade year. Um, we have never been a family that put sports first. Academics come first. And Cameron's ninth grade year, he went to a private school because of the high school where we lived um, was just opening. It was a new school in the district, and they were going to have sports, but it was really going to be a lot of pressure on him and two other really good athletes. And I didn't want him playing at a varsity level his ninth grade year. So he went to this private school across town and he played basketball there. And I said, you're going to concentrate on your academics the first semester so you get used to the rigor of this private school, and we'll see if you'll play football the next year. We've never pushed sports on our kids. We never did that. In fact, Craig did not want them to play football. That's a whole nother story. And so the high school coaches at the high school, he called me one day after school because that's back when you couldn't use your phone during school hours. And he was like, Mom, they gave me a uniform and they want me to come to practice. I was like, I'll be right there. And I went up there and kindly told them he is not playing football his ninth grade year. And they were highly upset, but I didn't care. And he went on to play basketball that year, played against Dwight Howard 4 times that year because they were in the same conference. And then his sophomore year, he made all conference at that school and that over there. And so he was doing okay. So he did well. But then we had to bring him back to where we lived to go to school because his dad had gotten sick again. And I couldn't make that trip across the city for him to go to that private school. So we had to get approved by the school board here. Not the school board, but the governing body here in Georgia, and write a letter and say, I'm bringing him back to the public school because his father's ill and I can't make the trip. So he came back, and, when here in Georgia, football is everything. So the coach said, well, okay, this is what the summer looks like. We're going to need him to go to these camps. And Cameron was like, I don't want to go to those camps because I want to still play travel basketball. So I said, well, he's not going to be there. He's going to do travel basketball. And the coach said, well, he's not going to start. I said, I don't care. That's fine. Cameron was like, that's fine. So he started his junior year. And of course, he came in. He was a man amongst boys. He played both sides of the ball, offensive line and defensive line, and did very well. And started being recruited his junior year, which is, now considered late because we have 8th graders being recruited. So he kind of took off. And then by his senior year, he was a 4-star on some of these scouting reports, and a few had him as a 5-star, which means nothing because it's usually mostly 3-stars that make it to the league. So when all the recruiting got heavy his senior year, I wasn't even thinking NFL. I was thinking, wow, okay, paid scholarship to school. That was my goal. Okay, I'm not going to have to worry about that because his father had passed away right before his senior year. So when he got to Ohio State, he was, in the mix. He was a freshman, and then somebody got hurt. And I see him going in. And I was like, oh, wow. I think it was like the 3rd or 4th game of the season. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're putting him in as a freshman. And then he never left the field. And I still didn't know if he was going to make it to the NFL. I mean, I knew he always worked so hard, but I just never took that for granted. If it came true, because he got hurt the last game of his senior year at the Sugar Bowl, and he tore all the tendons in his elbow. So we had to immediately go get surgery. I had to take him to Alabama that next week in January and get surgery performed. And I just never knew, is somebody going to draft him with this injury? What does this look like? And never thought it would be the Steelers. But it happened. So that was Cameron's path. Connor's path was a little different. I can honestly say, and my other sons and my daughter might get a little upset. Well, no, I'd say she's a great athlete too. She's a young lady that I adopted. But Connor is probably the best all around athlete out of them all. He played basketball, baseball, and football. Was recruited in basketball and football. Just when he was little, he was always at their practices, and he never played with toys. He just always wanted to play with balls.